Ah, it's November. Okay, so occasionally, actually not even occasionally, most of the time, most parabolas, most quadratics don't factor. Most of the time. The interesting thing is if you go to a European school, you go to like Germany or England or some of those schools, they don't even teach the kids factoring at all. Because everything can be done by this one formula, the quadratic formula. Now, the problem is that most problems that will factor are very unique problems. I think of this example, okay? I throw a ball in the air, it goes up, it hits the ground, right? I write the equation. What do you think the odds of that equation are going to be that's something that will factor? Pretty much like non-existent, right? So then how do you solve those problems? Well, most of the European schools use this thing called the quadratic formula. So we will use it for problems that we can't factor. We'll use it for problems that we can't complete the square. If you can't solve it easily at all, the quadratic formula will work. It is. If I start with negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, write that down. That's the quadratic formula, okay? Negative b, that's not a 6. Negative b plus or minus, because there's always two answers, right? Plus or minus, there's always two answers. Square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Now, and it comes from a parabola in standard form. If you have an ax squared plus a bx plus c equals 0, this is your standard form. So a is the number in front of x squared. It's the number, not the x squared. It's the number in front of x squared. You just put numbers. I see kids occasionally put x's in here. Don't. No, don't put x's in here. Just numbers. B is the number in front of x, and c is the number by itself, okay? Now, if you can't factor, because factor is the easiest way, or if you can't solve easily, right, those techniques won't work. We're going to use this. Now, the discriminant is this square root of b squared minus 4ac, okay? So the discriminant will tell you a couple of things. Just the word discriminant sounds like an English word, right? We're going to discriminate what's happening in the problem, right? If inside of here ever is negative, if b squared, so,
can you move it over?
Yeah, if b squared minus 4ac is negative,
No way.
if it is, then you're going to take the square root of a negative number, and you can't do that, right? So it's a discriminant. If this becomes negative, then there's no solutions. The graph itself would be above the x-axis, and you wouldn't have any x-intercepts, right? So the discriminant, if this becomes negative, you'll have no answers. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, you go the square root of 0, plus or minus square root of 0 is 0, you get one answer. And that can happen. You get the one answer, but technically get it twice, right? You'd get one answer. And then finally, if the b squared minus 4ac is positive, then what happens is you'll get a plus or minus some number, and you would get two answers. Yeah, sloppy positive. Then you'd get two answers, okay? That's what the discriminant will tell you, okay? So, if inside this b squared minus 4ac is negative, no answer, right? Can't take negative square roots, right? If this b squared minus 4ac is 0, well, square root of 0 is 0, we'd get just one answer. If it's positive, we'd have a plus and a minus to that number, and sometimes we'll have to use our calculator because we might get numbers that we can only do by a square root, okay? And today, instead of leaving it in square root form, we'll actually use the calculator to get decimal answers, okay? We're not going to have answers like, we're not going to go square root of 24 today and make that 2 square root of 6. We will not do that today. What we'll do instead is get a calculator instead, okay? We won't do this. We'll actually get a calculator and get an answer to the nearest tenth. Okay. Anyway, let's. Yeah. What's that?
You ever doing the old form again?
Well, we will still do that. Yeah. But we graph. Okay. Now here it is. Here's discriminant. Yeah. So if this is positive, right? Here's your discriminant. If it's positive, you get two answers, don't you? Because you get plus or minus, you get two answers, right? If your discriminant equals 0, you get one answer. Okay. That's a double root. It happens twice in one spot. And then if it's negative, it's less than 0, obviously you can't take the square root of a negative number, and this is the illustration what happens if it's negative, okay? You wouldn't get any answers, okay? So far, so good?
Yeah.
All right, so now let's move over to page 133, and let's do number 4, okay? We're going to go straight to number 4. All right, first of all, it must equal 0, and I'm going to do some of 4 up here for room. So the first thing I'm going to do is rewrite as x squared plus 6x plus 13 equals 0, okay? Now, it doesn't factor. It doesn't factor at all. So I'm looking at it going, well, shoot, if it doesn't factor, I've got a couple of choices. I could pull out my calculator, and I can graph it, and I can find the answers. And that will work, but it's a little tedious. Grab a calculator, put the y equals, put it in, hit graph. That will work. It will work, but it's a little tedious. The quadratic formula is actually faster, okay? So, A is 1, B is 6, and C is 13, right? A is 1, B is 6, and C is 13, all right? So we're going to plug it into the formula. So the formula, I'll put it up above so we have it. It's negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. And I'm going to put it on the board here in a little bit, okay? So you always have it up. All right, so let's check it out. Let's do number 4. So we'll start out with negative B. Well, B is 6, so we'll have a negative 6. Okay, so I'm just putting 6 right there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, because it's in the formula, right?
Yeah.
Plus, but if it was a negative negative, and that will happen, right? Sometimes you'll get a negative negative. That'll happen. Just make it a positive, right? Plus or minus, so we get 2 answers. Square root B squared, which is going to be 6 squared minus 4 times A is 1, times C, which is 13, all over 2A, which is 1. Okay, so there's...
Wait, isn't it negative?
No, it's parentheses.
Oh, I brought it over.
Now, what did you do in the parentheses?
These parentheses,
Oh, those are parentheses.
yeah, just to make it look like times signs. Because I put dots like times signs, and kids get confused. Is that a decimal, Mr. Davies? Like, no, we're multiplying, right? So I just choose parentheses for times signs, okay?
Wait, did you make that a negative?
It's a minus because of the formula.
13.
No, that's not. That's just parentheses. Sorry, Landon.
I know, but it says it's a negative 13.
No, great question. Somebody else asked that. I brought the 13 over. You have to. I brought it over up here, okay? No, it turns it down. Okay. So, Landon, we have to make it equal 0. So what I did...
Okay, I understand.
Okay, good. So let's keep going. So I got a negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus... Yeah, 36 minus, what is that, 52? 52? Is it 52? 13 times 4, I think it's 52. 13 times 4, yep, 52 over 2.
More tedious than a calculator.
Yeah.
Well, when you get to Mr. Massey's class, he won't let you use a calculator.
Mr. Massey.
I'm not gonna take math.
So then, 36 minus 52 is negative 16. So negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 16 over 2. I'm going to stop. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I know the answer. There is no answer. There's no solution.
Because I got you a negative.
Can't do a negative square root, can you? Right there. Let's highlight that. Okay? All right? Can't take the negative, can't take the square root of a negative number. So this one has no solution. No solution. So if I shift the page, its graph would look something like this. And again, if you were to put it on the calculator and look at it, you'd get a problem like that. You go, wait a minute, there's no solution. This proves that there's no solution, right? Okay, let's do number 5, all right? And I might do 5 on a separate sheet of paper. I don't know if you guys want to or not, but I'm going to run out of room if I don't. So let's do number 5 on a separate sheet of paper. So I'm going to run out of room in my journal, so I'm going to go 5 is a negative 3x squared plus 5x minus 1 equals negative 7. Okay, now I'm going to have to bring, oh, you can't see it, my bad. Can you see it now?
No. I mean,
Okay, so it must equal 0. Must equal 0. Okay? All right, so if that's the case, I'll bring the 7 over. All right? So I have a negative 3x squared plus a 5x plus 6 equals 0. Okay? Just added 7, added 7. Okay? I went plus 7, okay?
Plus 7
1
plus 7.
and 1. 7 and 1. Maybe.
You okay? I just added this. I added 7 to this side.
Okay.
Now it equals 0, right? Equals 0. So here's there's B, there's C, right? So the formula is negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay? There's the formula. So I'm going to go negative B, which is a negative 5, plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is 5 squared minus 4 times A, which is negative 3, times times C, which is 6, all over 2 times A, which is negative 3. Okay, how am I doing?
Looks good to me.
I'll wait for you. Thanks, Quinn. All right, now let's tidy it up. Negative 5 plus or minus square root of 25 plus 12 times 6, what's that, 72? All over negative 6. Okay. 25 plus 72 is 97. So I get negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 97 over negative 6. So 2 thumbs up so far, right?
Yeah.
Now, we want an answer. We want an answer, so what I need to do is do a little side work. What is the square root of 97? Well, I'm going to use my calculator, right?
9.8.
There you go. Probably sounds perfect. Square root of 97. I'm sure that Caleb's right. Yeah, 9.84, but we'll go to the nearest tenth, okay? 9.8. So we get about 9.8. So I'm going to put 9.8 right there. Okay? Oh, sorry. I'm going to put 9.8 right there. Instead of square root of 97, 9.8, right? So we're going to, okay, negative 5 plus or minus 9.8 over negative 6. Now I need 2 answers. The answers are there. Now it's just a matter of doing math. Just plain old add, subtract, divide, right? So my 2 answers, you ready? I'm going to have a negative 5 plus 9.8 divided by negative 6, and I'll have a negative 5 minus 9.8 divided by negative 6. So the quadratic formula is not hard, it's just tedious, right? But it always works. I had a student, was it Avery? Avery Stitt, you guys remember Avery at all?
Yes.
Avery said, I hate factoring. He just hated factoring. When I showed him this, he goes, I got it, Mr. Davies. He liked this because he hated factoring. So then it's like he could always do any problem because you could do this. So let's go
I
ahead.
don't think I would like that.
Negative 5 plus 9.8. Factoring's faster, though. Is a 4.8 divided by negative 6. I just subtracted those. So what's 4.8 divided by negative 6? I get one answer of a negative 0.8. That's one of my answers. 2 answers, right? Negative 5 minus 9.8 is a negative 14.8 divided by negative 6. And my other answer is about a 2.5. Okay? That's the quadratic formula in a nutshell. Now, on the next page in your journal, it just talks more about the same kind of thing, okay? So, real quickly, number 8. Guys, go to the next page. It says determine the number of real solutions. So you have a choice of either 2 real answers, 1 answer, or 0. How could you find out how many answers you'd have? Right? So this one, you could graph it and look at the question. You could do the b squared minus 4ac, and if that's negative, you have no answers. If it's positive, you have two answers, or if it's 0, you have one answer, okay? So if I did my negative b, if I do my b squared minus my 4 times negative 1 times 3,
This is a different formula.
Yeah.
It's what's inside the square root.
Yeah, but why is it all square rooted?
great question. So let's go to what we're asking. The question's asking this. It's, first of all, it's not asking to get the answer. It's just saying how many answers are there. So if this turns out to be negative, no answers. If this turns out to be 0, one answer. If this turns out to be positive, two answers. Now we don't care what the answers are. Just so if I go to 36 plus 12, boom. I don't care what the answers are, but how many answers are there? Two. Yeah, see how it works?
Wait, when would there ever be one answer?
Let's do number 9.
One answer.
It is one answer, but first of all, you can do number 9 by factoring. You can get it and you can prove that there's only one answer by
Well,
factoring.
it has to be 2 because there's a square root on the end.
Let's check it out. Let's do 9. So if I do 9, let's see why there's only one answer. So I'm going to do my b squared minus 4ac, right? So I'm going to go 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9. You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
36 minus 36.
Oh, because they're equal 0.
Right, and so then if the plus or minus becomes 0, plus or minus 0 is 0, right? One answer. One answer, right? My guess is number 10 has two answers, but you know, we could just check it out anyway.
Or
Actually,
we don't have to check.
or no answers. I think there's no answers. Actually, I think there's no answers. Let's check it out. So I go my b squared. I go 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8. 9 minus 32. Oh, that's definitely going to be negative. You agree? That's definitely. And then I would have had to take a square root of a negative number. Can't do that. No answer. Okay.
Nice.
Now we won't do 11, but we'll talk about 11 real quickly. So on 11, if it's the same exact question, 11, 12, and 13 are the exact same question. So if you get a positive value, you're going to have two answers, which means two x-intercepts. Two answers, two x-intercepts, right? One answer, one x-intercept. Does that make sense? No answers, no x-intercepts. It's exact, 11, 12, 13, the exact same
Wait,
question.
so if there's one x-intercept, isn't the graph going like this?
It's going like this. It's going like that.
There's two, then it's
If it's 2, it's like that.
or inverted.
Okay. Yes, I would agree with that. Totally agree with that. Okay. Now, finally, let's look at 14, 15, and 16. Now, personally for me, I like factoring because it's easy. If I can factor, boom, boom, I'm done. So on 14, 15, and 16, I look at the problem and I think, okay, how could I solve the equation? So 14, let's try factoring first because isn't factoring the easiest way to do it?
Yes.
So if I go minus 16, I'd have an x squared minus a 4x minus a 12 equals 0. Will that factor?
Yeah.
It will factor. This will factor. So isn't factoring easier?
Yeah.
So I got an x minus 6, x plus 2. Capiche? X equals 6 and x equals negative 2. The quadratic formula will work on this problem. It will. Quadratic formula will work on any of these.
Want to do that?
But wouldn't you rather factor if you can?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too. You don't like factoring, but then you could use the quadratic formula all the time, right? You and A.B. did, okay? How about 15? Will 15 factor? Yeah. So if it factors, just factor it. So how about an x minus 1, x minus 7, right?
No way. That's not it.
And you get a x equals 1.
And x equals 7.
Much better than the quadratic formula, okay? But now, 16, will it factor?
No.
So we won't do it, but if it won't factor, you're going to have to use the quadratic formula, okay? Sorry. Okay, now, Landon, your brother, your oldest brother,
Dangerous child.
no.